Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to Timeless Cookery. This is Emma Goodwin of Timeless Cookery, and with me today I have Lucy Jameson. Lucy Jameson and I were neighbours way back when in Sussex, and um, Lucy is now. Tell me, you introduce yourself, Lucy, and what it is you do.
Okay, so hi, I'm Lucy, and as Emma said, we've known each other. I think I worked it out for about 10 years, actually, all told. So it's a long time in different ways and capacities. I work as a facilitator of identity-oriented psychotrauma therapy, which is the very catchily named practice.
It's
We
very short.
shortened the IOPT, still not great.
IOPT.
Um, Basically looking at early trauma, so looking at our lives from the time of conception onwards, so all through our time in the womb, through birth, early childhood, and obviously then on into the rest of our lives, but essentially really focusing on that very early time of how does the psychological state of our mother affect her ability to hold a space for us where we are wanted, loved, and protected, and therefore how does that impact on our sense of who we are. Because if I can't be me, if there's not a real space for me that's welcoming and open for everything that I am, that's a compromise for me. And then it looking at problems that can then ensue, possibly already in childhood, but certainly
If
later.
we're not feeling 100% loved and all groovy, which hardly anybody does these days,
Yeah,
let's face it. So
exactly.
basically, everyone could use a bit of IOTPT.
I think so. And I think, my experience is that, I've not come across the person who isn't in some way traumatized. I think it's endemic rather than exotic. I think it's an everyday thing that we're dealing with, but we don't always know we're dealing with it because it's not necessarily visible. It's
I
not
hear you. Yeah,
something.
absolutely. I'm in agreement. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, and I'm a mother. I have two children. My son is about to turn 13. My daughter is 9 by her reckoning because she counts her age from conception rather than from birth. So in birthdays she'll be 9 in September, but in her counting she's already well past 9.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
my
So,
interest in being a parent, which actually brought me to the GAPS protocol in a way, like for myself, but also for the effect that I have had on my children. So there's a kind of a weaving together of the work that I do and what you're offering, which is really precious to me.
so this is why we wanted to have this chat, wasn't it? Because uh, the the very first online GAPS group training that I offered in May, you came along and you had been to one of my earlier GAPS live cookery courses way back when, some about 5 years ago,
I
maybe.
think it was about 5 years ago. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we did a 6 week, once a week, come for a live cookery class, have a chat about the issues and get the basics, grasp the basics of GAPS. But that was before I trained as a GAPS coach. So there's an awful lot more now. So you've come back on the course to brush up and get in depth with it, which is so exciting. But the first time that you joined, the reason you joined 5 years ago or so was that your daughter had begun to have tooth decay quite badly, and her teeth had begun to blacken. And this is extremely worrying for any parent. What am I doing wrong? I thought I was feeding my child correctly, and what's going on? It really frightening situation to be in. So, and you came on the GAPS course, and I'd really like to ask you uh, where you were when you first found out about your child's teeth issues, and then, well, let's take it from there. Where were you when you first
Okay.
found out about her teeth going bad?
Well, there's a backstory in the sense that I was a vegan from the age, I was a vegetarian from the age of about 11, from my own choice. And then I was a vegan from the age of about 21. And I'd already had my son and brought him up vegan. He was 3.5 when Gracie was conceived, my daughter. Um, and I had then obviously grown Gracie, gestated her, given birth to her, and I think it was about around the age of 2, so really early. I mean, only around the time when you have kind of all your child teeth, baby teeth. that I started to notice the decay. But she was also giving me really clear signals. So by the time we came on your course, she was 3, and she was saying to me, "Mummy, I'm not a vegan." And we would go around to other people's houses who had like a butter dish on the table, and she would be reaching for the butter and eating it with her hand.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, okay, you know, that was the first kind of wake up call to me, in a sense of, I might have an idea about what I eat and the way we eat as a family, but this is not Gracie's idea, and recognizing that I need to do something different. I need to listen to her. And similarly, in the supermarket, she would point at milk and say, you know, "Mummy, what's that?" And I say, "Well, you know, that's milk that comes from a cow. I want some." So I said, "Okay, well, we're not going to buy that, but I will take you to the farm up the road. As you know, we've got the beautiful biodynamic farm up the road, and I'll get you some raw milk from the farm." So these were the kind of signs. I didn't necessarily put 2 and 2 together at the time. So we had the tooth decay on the one hand, and Gracie's very clear voicing of what it was that she wanted, different from my idea. And then it was a friend of mine, I think, whose butter she had been eating, who recommended me your course, who'd been on it. So that kind of, I thought, yeah, there's something in this. I didn't really know what it was. It was more like an instinct to just come along. But I had been told by the time, I mean, this is kind of an ongoing journey. By the time Gracie was 4 or 5, I'd been told by about 5 or 6 different dentists, private and NHS and special care and all sorts, that the only solution was to remove the teeth. So she had tooth decay in almost all of her top teeth and her upper jaw, and not so much in her bottom jaw, but very much in her top jaw. And the only solution given to me, as I say, by all these different people, and in a way, what I realized I was doing was waiting for someone to say, "It's okay, you don't have to take the teeth out," but nobody was saying that. And it wasn't until I came on your course, I think, and then there's a brilliant book, Cure Tooth Decay, Ramiel Nagle, is it?
Yeah.
So he writes all about that you don't need to take the teeth out, and very much in line with the Weston A. Price thinking and all of what you are offering with your approach to food as medicine, kind of just calmed me down and gave me the space to not do anything drastic. I mean, I knew I didn't want her teeth out. I just knew. And I mean, from my perspective, you know, the removal of a tooth in that situation is a trauma for a child.
Oh, goodness me, yeah.
It would have involved general anesthetic. It's an absolute violation of her right to have teeth. As you know, so it's not a thing. But I didn't know, the thing was, I didn't know what I could do. I knew what I didn't want to do, but I didn't know there's something I needed to do instead.
It's not very out there, is it, as information? It's interesting how it doesn't seem to be offered easily and willingly. In fact, when you look at the diet which is suggested in that wonderful book, Cure Tooth Decay, there's a lot of it's quite like French cuisine, actually. There's things like steak tartare with a raw egg on top, and you know, raw this and raw that and raw the other. Lots of animal food, you know, fermented fish, lots of fermented dairy, yeah, and raw everything. And there's a lot of people. There seems to be a lot of media promotion of plant-based diets, yet they don't seem to be the diet that you can really grow a child on, you know, it would seem, from your experience and many others that I've spoken with. So it's interesting that that's not out there as free information, that everyone's talking about it. Yeah, we don't need to have tooth decay. It's all right. You know, you just got to eat right. But it's a bit strange suggesting people should always eat steak tartare and
I mean, we never got as far as
you didn't go that far, and you've already managed to do a lot of healing, not even going as far as he suggested. But I think for an adult to cure tooth decay, you would have to go down that route. I think it's different for children because they're just so amazingly, but like they're just bursting full of life, aren't they? And their cells are just regenerating at such a pace that they can, you know. So yeah, what did you begin to do then? How did you change the way you were eating?
Well, I mean, so Gracie was clear, you know, she's not vegan. So that's the end. That was the end of that. You know, I'm not going to make a child eat a certain way that they don't want to eat. It's not, it wouldn't be ethical. And also she just was not going to accept that anyway. She was very clear. She was very clear about her teeth as well. You know, these are my teeth. No one's taking them out. So even when I was wobbling, she was always clear about that. So I guess raw milk was a big part of it. Cream, lots of raw cream. Yeah, starting to, making sure, getting away from grains, getting right away from oats. That was a big one.
May I ask, did you have your children vaccinated?
No,
Okay,
I didn't.
just curious about that.
Okay. So in a way, what I kind of saw, but you see, then I'm also working at another angle that's complementing this, whereas I'm asking questions through my work. I did a piece of work about Gracie's tooth decay, and it was very interesting what it showed. That's a separate issue, but that's more of the like, if you like, psychological and emotional story of me, my mother, that kind of multi-generational story. It was also impacted her teeth.
Well, that's so interesting, because the gaps, if you have a child presenting with any kind of autoimmune issues or ADHD or autism or tooth decay or whatever, it generally means that there is gut dysbiosis of some description, probably, which means they're not getting nourished enough. Maybe they've had a lot of complex carbohydrates, a lot of refined carbohydrates, and then become demineralized because our body uses up a lot of minerals as it's metabolizing those complex carbohydrates. So especially being a vegetarian or vegan would mean a lot more carbs than usual and not quite so much protein. But gaps, if there's a gaps child presenting with something, you can virtually guarantee that the mama has got issues, and you can virtually guarantee that the grandmother probably had some sorts of issues. So it's the same, isn't it? It's an ancestral thing. And bless the children these days, they've become sort of, each generation just becomes slightly more toxic, slightly more toxic, slightly more toxic.
It's true, and it's true. So it's true, I guess, of gut flora, and it's true of unresolved trauma. And I think there's a massive link between the two. Is that actually when things go unaddressed, they just get passed on, and the cumulative effect is worse.
Yeah.
So for a child after 4 generations of incorrect diet, unhealthy diet, pathogens in the gut, all of the things which is your area of expertise, or a child after 4 generations of unresolved trauma, I think there's a very, very close link between the two anyway. Because our gut is our first organ, right, together with the brain, and then they're separating out as we're growing. And I think that children are often holding the symptoms of the unresolved trauma. Sometimes it's their own, sometimes it belongs with the parents. So I don't tend to work with children, because if you work with the parents, the children relax, and then it's not necessary. And I can see one of the things that really drew me to your recent course, which I'm now halfway through, was something you said about, if you want to, don't think you're doing this for your child. I think you said something like this, because you need to do it for yourself. And this is exactly my thinking about all of these things that people might think, my child's ill, or they've got a behavioral disorder or whatever. The child is just flagging up what's not right in the system. Yeah. And if you take care of it, you take responsibility for it, you start to investigate it, it quietens down. Yeah. So I see the parallel there, where you're saying, feed yourself right, and then it'll come right with the children.
That was a sort of a happy accident that came out. It never occurred to me before. It was just that most people come saying, my child is allergic, or my child is ADHD, or my child is this, what can I do? And I say, well, try this, and just try cooking this way and try eating that way. And then the child may stick their heels in and say, I don't want that. And the way to get around that is you leading by example as a parent and going, I'm really enjoying my food. If you want some, come and sit on my knee and I'll feed you. This is the food there is. I'm really enjoying it. And so that's how, because obviously that's how children learn. They see the parent doing it, and then they follow suit. So that was a sort of happy accident. But then, of course, I began to hear all the stories of the mums going, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I just, my brain fog's gone. I don't feel so knackered in the afternoons, and I've got energy, and I feel a bit happier and not anxious, and etc., etc., etc. Gut and psychology syndrome. It's yeah,
exactly, because the gut and the brain were one thing, and divided out, and should be so connected, so beautifully interconnected. And of course the dysbiosis, as I understand it, is the non-working together of what's happening for us emotionally, what's happening for us physically, and trauma is the interrupter of that. which then leads to, I don't know, there are just so many crossovers between the two approaches. It seems so useful to me. So for myself, I can say I have done a lot of work, a lot of emotional, psychological work. You know, I've been using IOPT for myself for about 8 years, but I needed the key to understanding what it was my body needed to eat in order to go any further with my healing. So I'd recognized all of the patterns, I understood a lot why, but I didn't know, again, that kind of space, a bit like with my daughter, and okay, I know I don't want to have her teeth out, but what's the thing that I can do? It was the same for me with food, and what you're teaching is I felt like I can see what I'm doing that's not okay. I recognize the patterns. So for me, it was more about self-starvation, food refusal, and food denial. But what is the thing that I can feed myself that will change that, that will support me in my efforts to release this pattern or find another way? So it was
And
very,
it's the
very
building blocks, isn't it? It's the
exactly.
fundamental building blocks of life. It's the proteins, the fats, the animal products that must
Exactly.
come from a regenerative organic model.
Mm,
Ideally,
mm,
obviously not everybody can, and we've got to just say thank you for whatever we can get, you know, and be blessings on the meal, and we can transmute all poisons, and obviously want to try and encourage people to buy their animal products from a model that is actually, you know, respectful and loving, because I mean, why did you become vegan and vegetarian?
Well, I mean, it's a funny one to unravel. I look back now on knowing what I know about trauma and its effects, and I think my efforts at being vegetarian and then being vegan were a kind of self-perpetration. So, and this is very unique to me. I'm not at all suggesting that people who are vegetarian or vegan have this going on for them. I wouldn't know. What I can say for me is that I was an unwanted child. So my mother didn't want a child, my father didn't want a child. So already I'm very compromised in terms of how I can be in the world. And one way not to want myself, in a way to kind of agree to my unwantedness, is not to feed myself.
Wow.
The other thing I know, I had a very traumatic childhood, and it wasn't safe for me as a child. So one way not to feel as well, I realized, is not to eat. So this was a big thing that happened because it disconnects from your body, right? If you're not really eating, if you're kind of skimming starvation all the time, maybe just having a quick kick of sugar so that you don't actually fall over, but you're not really nourishing yourself, you can stay marvelously out of your body, which for me was very important as a survival mechanism for many years. But of course, it makes you ill. It weakens you, it makes you tired. You're prone to autoimmune disease, all these kind of things. So, so what I recognized as I started to eat the sorts of food that actually fed me was I started to feel.
Okay.
I
And
came back into contact with my body, and then I need to be emotionally and psychologically resourced enough to be okay with the feelings. Otherwise, I'll be overwhelmed.
so was that a
This,
challenge?
well, luckily, I've got a lot of support now. Like I say, I've got a practice that works for me. I can work with colleagues. I can work with friends. I can go to groups. Even being a practitioner is a kind of healing thing in itself. I don't know if you find the same, but I find every time somebody takes a step towards themselves, somehow it also gives me
Oh, I
something.
love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
so in answer to your question, why did I become vegetarian? I think at the time I would have said, it's cool to eat animals. I learned about factory farming. I thought that was terrible. There wasn't anyone by my side saying, you're absolutely right, that is terrible. However, there's this whole other way, which is actually honoring of the animals and honoring of the land and part of the cycle of life. I didn't have that information, that was missing. And so I think it was, in a way, just more and more denial of self, more and more living, I mean, literally living in a kind of thinner and thinner space. So daring to kind of be the wholeness of myself in filling up my own whole body, also means being with the reality of my own childhood, which I was keeping safely away from. But of course, when you have your own children and you're avoiding the reality of your own childhood, they're then burdened. which I think is the same again as, you know, not feeding yourself right and passing it on through the culture of the
So
food in the family.
is your job then to shine light on the shadow side and dissolve those um, painful memories and well, not dissolve, not lose them completely, but I mean somehow assimilate them healthily? Is it to shine a light on the shadow side?
Yes, I mean, it's, you know, I don't want to, I guess, go too much into the actual theory of the work, because in a way that will that will lead us right into an IOPT lecture if I'm not careful. Which, you know, I know we're here to talk about gaps and food.
Yeah, what I want to know about really most, go on, sorry, go on.
Well, no, I will just say briefly that the idea is that when we're overwhelmed by something, we split it off. So we dissociate in the first instance, and then we actually become split in our psyche. So when we can't remember things, they're either stored in the body because we were so young we didn't have a conscious mind to remember them with, or we've just split them off. And it happens a lot. You know, people have things happen to them that are too overwhelming and they forget. But somewhere in the body, they're stored and can be triggered. So not eating in my case, or maybe junk food eating or overeating, I don't know, it's all a spectrum of the same thing.
Mm.
Comfort eating
Yeah, yeah,
is
I
a
have to
way
comfort
not,
eat.
yeah, sure. So is a way not to feel. Those are more survival strategies. They're ways not to feel.
Mm.
So the task for anyone who wants to explore the reality of how things have been for them throughout their lives from the very beginning is to build up resources in the first instance so that they feel safe enough, and then step by step by step, incrementally come back into contact with those split off parts. But it's very, very gradual. And I would imagine, you know, I think I sent you a text message saying, how much kvass can I drink? Can I drink it all? I just loved it. And I remember you said low and slow, you know, just little doses and just take it easy.
When
And
you
in a way,
first begin
yes,
to enjoy it, yeah.
and that's exactly like with this work, you know, with the trauma work. It's like you take it easy, you take it at your own pace. Whoever is doing the work is in charge of what they want to explore, how much they want to feel, how much is enough, all of these things, because you're listening to your body
Mm.
in the same way that you would, you know, if, I don't know, like kefir, I think milk kefir, I'm like, I remember my partner buying some and drinking it, and I was like, that is so disgusting. How can you stand it? You know, and I just know that at that time that's the same as me having a conversation with someone who asks me about my work and they're just going, that sounds horrific. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to go back over all of the horrible,
So that
painful
you can
things?
piece yourself back together again. Yeah,
Exactly.
piecing yourself back together again. So I have a little prayer I say nearly every day, and that is part of my daily affirmations where I say, I now realize I am happily vibrating at the highest frequency to enable and allow my intention to heal this body, heal this mind, and bring this fragmented soul back together. I just say that. I don't even know quite what it means, but and then I say, and that I may help anyone else who wishes to heal their body, to heal their mind, and to bring their fragmented soul together, so that we may um, make heaven on earth, basically, so that we can strengthen the web of life and heal the land, you know, and live happily ever after, kind of thing, you know, daily affirmation. Because I feel we are all fragmented, and certainly having found gaps, I feel so much more whole now that because I think I've actually plugged the gaps, actually, literally the gaps in my on a cellular level, where I've evicted the trans fatty acids and evicted the halides, the fluoride, and the I don't know what other toxins that were sitting there in my cell membranes, you know, hijacking a spot where there should have been iodine or a proper good saturated fat, you know, um, disabling me on a cellular level, you know. So now I've plugged those holes, I've evicted the baddies and plugged those holes with like real whole food, and I just feel so whole. I feel really whole, and I feel as though I'm properly coming into my own now, age 52 or whatever, ready to be in service to whoever needs it, you know. And what a thrill it was to hear your story with Gracie's teeth. So how did you start to, what kind of things were you eating then? How did you introduce Gracie to GAPS?
Well, I mean, she just kind of wanted all of the things that she came with. I remember both my children came with me to your original course because they were quite little then. She wanted all the raw dairy. I found with things like porridge, for example.
It should be fermented dairy. When you came on that first course, I was saying, drink raw milk, drink raw milk. And now, having become a GAPS coach, what I'm realizing is when you are a GAPster to begin with, you need to have fermented dairy.
Okay.
And it's only when you've already healed and sealed your gut for a couple of years that you can handle raw dairy, actually, because it's full of lactose, as in a sugar, which may feed the pathogens. So it always has to be a little bit fermented to begin with, anyway, just in case anyone picks me up on that one. Just thought I'd better throw
Okay.
it. So to begin with, you were enjoying raw dairy, yeah?
Sure. And then also, well, starting to eat meat, you know, was a massive thing. Learning how to make a stock pot, which is something I learned from you, and actually that stayed. So that was there and never left.
Great.
Although some of the other things kind of in and out, like I went through phases of making smoothies and then just, you know, forget it for months. But the stock pot stayed on the stove and is still on the stove. It's not the same one, obviously. That would not be. But it's been there literally constantly. So we actually make ours with beef bones, and it's always there, and it's bubbling away until it's no longer, you know, of use, and then we're making a new one. And that's just absolutely become integral in our lives. So my son, for example, would rather eat vegetarian. He doesn't like to eat animals. He doesn't like the thought of it. He's fine with the stock pot. And he's actually fine with lard, interestingly, which we've just sort of started getting into in a big way because I've started rendering my own. Thank you.
Great, well done.
And that's great. And and they're interested, and it's interesting because I think the stock was a big part of the shift for us.
Yeah.
Just having that really, really healthy thing that you can put into soup. I mean, I used to put it into, you know, canned baked beans. I just used to stir a bit in.
That is the way, isn't it, to transition from a vegetarian or a vegan vegetarian way of eating into meat. You have to do it low and slow again, because you can't expect your body to suddenly just eat a steak when it just won't know how to. It won't be equipped. Your pancreas will go, what the hell is that? It won't know what juices to squirt in to break down into amino acids. The stock pot is the way. Lots of fish.
Fish was a great thing. Yeah. We never really got hardcore into the kind of, you know, the tooth decay remedies, like you say. Maybe that is more for adults. But I think just steering clear. So oats, you know, porridge we would have had, you know, often wouldn't have soaked the oats, wouldn't have known that that was an issue. And I just found that if I just didn't buy oats and didn't have them in the cupboard and didn't mention them, they were gone. You know, same with pasta. It's only if we have it and we're eating it that it's like, then it's there and it's on the agenda. If it's not there, then
I just don't ask. We can get a really nice lentil pasta at our local Whole Food Seasons place. And when they say, what are we having? And I say, it's pasta pesto. It's actually the ratio of pasta to vegetables is probably about 10 to 1, so one bit of pasta and 10 vegetables. So I like the usual kind of chop it up and chuck it in, loads of veg in a pan, loads of stock, loads of butter, loads of garlic, and then I'll cook the lentil pasta in stock, and then add garlic just at the end, and there'll be just a smattering of a few little curly whirly pasta bits, you know, but it's mostly vegetables. Maybe I'll chuck in some chicken or some chorizo with it as well, I don't know, whatever. But back in the day it used to be literally bowl of pasta, spoon of pesto, bit of olive oil. That was like 5 times a week. It'd be literally pasta pesto. Maybe if they were lucky, they might get a bit of grated parmesan on top. But now it's like mostly vegetables, but the key, of course, is the good fats and the stock, because with that's the collagen and the gelatin, these things that have been a bit demonized in our society. Collagen, you know, when I was growing up, it was like collagen injections in your lips to make them, you know, I remember thinking, what is collagen? That sounds disgusting. You know, that was my first memory of collagen, hearing about people having injections in their face with it, which was abhorrent. And then gelatin, after the BSE terrible debacle, where they murdered all those cows for I don't know quite what reason, but I don't know where that came from, that foot and mouth exactly, but anyway, interesting with thinking about germ theory and whatnot with the current coronavirus circumstances. But gelatin then became a non-ingredient. Like, don't have gelatin. If it's got cow gelatin in it, don't eat it. Don't eat it. Gelatin is like one of the most healing things out there. Obviously, if you can get it from your stock pot, from pasture-fed beef, from a regenerative agricultural model, brilliant, all good. But collagen and gelatin are what does it. That, you know, gelatin has got all the 22 amino acids, essential amino acids, in that you need to build a body, or to fix yourself up if you've got broken bits. So I mean, even if you're not going to eat meat, never mind. But you can even get powdered gelatin if you don't want to be boiling up bones in a stock pot. You can even buy organic pasture-fed powdered gelatin. Doesn't smell of anything. You can just stir it into a warm apple juice or something, you know. Yeah, collagen and gelatin, that's the way to transition if you are vegetarian, vegan, and the stock pot. That's the key, isn't it? And the good fats. Can I just tell you one thing, actually, Lucy, that I found out recently? Talking about lard, you were saying getting back into lard. I just was reading this fabulous book the other day called Zodiac and the Salts of Salvation, which is all about when we, it's basically that we're made of minerals. We know that, really, we're made of water, a little bit of fat, a little bit of protein, but it's the minerals that are key. That's what keeps us healthy. If you burn a body to ash, what you'll find is 12 minerals left. And there's a guy at the turn of the last century who attributed each of those minerals to each of the 12 signs of the zodiac. And then he found that if you had gestated for those particular 9 months, that you were fairly abundant in those particular minerals. But for the 3 months of the 12 months of the year, you know, that you weren't in utero, that you're probably going to be deficient in those minerals. It's so interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and we can get those minerals from the stock pot. So, but the other thing I wanted to tell you was about, I found out in that book, Zodiac and the Salts of Salvation, about lamb fat. I've never been that keen. It's got a very strong flavour, and I've had trouble to introduce lamb to the family. Even lovely, beautiful, fall off the bone roasted lamb, or they just don't want it. And lamb fat and mutton fat has that very, very strong flavour, but it's the absolute top source of potassium. Like, so if anyone feels that they might be potassium deficient, lamb fat, oh my gosh, it's the key. It's the one that we really need to get in for brain health, for neural issues. Yeah, so I'm going to be working on that, because that's the one thing I don't really have in my kitchen. I've got the lard, I've got the beef fat, I've got the goose tallow, I've got the goose fat, I've got the butter, the cream, all that loveliness, gorgeous, but not the lamb. But that's actually what we need. I've only just found that as a top tip I'm giving you there. Let me know if you can get it in.
What I was also thinking about in terms of changing a diet or reintroducing new things is actually the importance of tenderness. Like, it's been really important to me to be really tender with myself about what it feels okay to eat, what feels overwhelming, when are the moments when I can't do it. And I think that's probably why it took me, the 5 years between your first sort of introductory course, if you like, and this time again now, is to do with actually being able to be tender enough with myself and not be like a food policeman, like, you've got to have this and you're not allowed to have that, and and also in terms of my family, to be really conscious of that too, that everyone within my family, all 4 of us, we all have our own autonomy. It's not actually useful if I'm policing what other people are eating.
Yeah, and that's so hard, isn't it? Because you're the mama, you're putting the food on the table, but what if not everybody fancies eating what you've cooked today, and their body is saying, actually, I don't fancy that today. And then as a mama, you're always like, I've worked hard to put this food on the table. I always feel that way. I've tried very hard as well to be gentle with the children, because you can't make anyone eat anything, can you? It's awful.
But I know, most importantly, myself, I think that's what I've realised, is that if I don't want something, then it's okay not to have it, because it's otherwise it's a violation of myself if I'm making myself eat something that actually doesn't feel okay for me. So that's an important part of it too, I think.
That's lovely. Tenderness, yeah.
For everybody, in terms of any changes anybody wants to make in their life. It's actually
Gently.
about, yes, gently, because otherwise we're just in a fight with ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that's why
That's
I've extended the course now to a 12-week course. So it's a
good.
3-month thing, because as I was saying earlier, you can't expect people to just make sweeping changes really, really quickly. You need to do it gently, and just bring in one, if you can, bring in a habit every week and
Mhm.
see how it goes, and see how things change, because your body needs a chance to adapt, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yes, and I've really appreciated that about the course, actually, this kind of step by step, each week there's a focus on something. I was really excited that the baking week coincided with my birthday. That was extremely
Yay.
but yeah, basically, just to, start as you did, with the kind of, with the basics, with the stock pot, and because I always think if you just take one thing like I did originally, just take one element and incorporate it into your life, but it's really yours and you own it. I mean, I can remember calling you from having bought a chicken, right? So this is like, I don't know, however old I was, 40, 38, 39, something like this. And I'm standing there going, Emma, I've just bought a chicken. I don't know what to do. I know I've got to make a stock pot, but it's already stressful. And I literally, and you're like, it's okay. You just need like a ladle and a sieve and a blah, blah. And I'm sure you like talked me through it, because
I
actually
think you also, I remember you
we
telling me
did things.
afterwards that you had all sung a little song. You and the children had sung a little
Yeah,
song, speaking
well,
of
because we were about to
gratitude.
eat it and it was a bit, yeah.
So beautiful.
We did
That's
to the
so
chicken.
beautiful.
But what I really recognized is, for me, that transition, I needed someone to accompany me.
Yeah. Hold your
I
hand.
wasn't going to be able to, like, take this information and go, oh, great, I can immediately translate this information into something real. I needed to be able to call you and go, what do I do now? Like, don't worry, put some cold water in the pan, put the chicken in. And actually, that's really important. And I think that's the other thing, which correlates or relates to the work I do, is we can't do these things by ourselves. We can't be expected in isolation. If we're struggling with an illness, or struggling with a food related something, we can't, I don't think, I certainly couldn't have, in isolation, have picked up a book and gone, oh, I see what I have to do now. I need companionship.
Yeah.
I need
So
somebody else
important.
there who's walked further along that track than me, who can say, it's okay, I remember also panicking about this. Maybe just, and something I appreciate about what you bring is this kind of, you're already doing brilliantly attitude. Just being here, you're already doing
Yeah.
brilliantly. Just do one of these things and it's great.
Well, do you know, there's so many people out there who are lost, frankly. I see them and I feel and I think, wow, you're so lost. Come, maybe maybe this might help. I don't know, but I have suggested sometimes on some platforms online about, for instance, um, I said once on a platform, um, autism is a biological condition. Therefore, we can do something about it.
Mhm.
And that was it. That's all I said. And the kickback I got was frightening. I mean, I was so shocked at the vehement uh, anger and who is this? Who are you? Get off here! What are you talking about? Lots of angry swearing and things and everything. I was like, I I'm just a messenger here, letting everyone know. It shows how far um, we've been misinformed, really, about things.
I think so. And I
And
think
so,
sometimes
if
it's
people
hard.
do manage to get to that phase where they're going, yeah, okay, is there something in that, really? If they've managed to get past that, mass um, preconceptions or ideas that we've all been given, that if they can get past that and just to the point where they go, can I get better? I think I can get better. I would like to try to get better. It's a massive step. Well done. Yeah, exactly.
I think so. And I think, people don't know. And, it is challenging when sometimes when people have been used to saying, I've got a disorder, it's got a name,
Mm.
there's a medication you can take for it. It's quite a helpless, childlike situation to be in. And it is quite challenging. And I know it for myself, to have someone come along and say, actually, there's something you can do about this. you can take this matter into your own hands and you can do something, you know. And I know, if I think back to Gracie and her teeth, as we were talking at the beginning, you know, I was part of me, I wanted someone else to fix it. I didn't want to have to deal with it. I will say that actually she has beautiful adult teeth growing through, which are all fine, and there's no problem with them. And the little black teeth, she had this little one here, was so black, and it sat there and sat there and sat there forever. And one dentist I eventually found who said, it's so good that you left that tooth in, otherwise the other tooth wouldn't have known where to come.
Wow.
He was the only dentist who acknowledged the importance of leaving the baby teeth where they are as placeholders for the second teeth.
Wow.
So that was really key. And just very recently, that one just fell out. It just popped out.
Brilliant.
And I knew, because its job was done.
Great. And
so,
that was age 9 or 8.5 or something.
Yeah. So, you know, and so I'm just saying that in case anybody is wondering what the outcome of that was. You
yes,
know,
important, really important. Yeah, she's got pearly whites. She now has shiny pearly whites.
But we have, you know, and there's decay there and the teeth that haven't fallen out yet, but nothing is degenerating more. And it's almost like, I feel like, you know, we were heading in one direction. I didn't know, you know, what was in charge or how come we were going this way, and I was getting scared, and I found a kind of way to just avert the cliff edge of, as I say, major traumatization of a child, of being taken off into hospital and, you know, having God knows how many teeth out on the pretext that it's necessary.
Well done, Lucy. Really, really,
so,
really well
you know,
done.
Well, it's, you know, it's certainly in part thanks to you, and in thanks to the other people who have a different viewpoint, you know, like you're saying, who dare to say there is an alternative solution to this. It's not just a foregone conclusion. You know, and I do really strongly believe everybody is free to make their own decisions. But if you have a feeling in your body, this doesn't feel right, this feels like a violation, but I don't know the alternatives, you know, that's where I'm grateful then for the information that, as you say, is not so widely available. And it's actually about empowerment. It's actually about saying, I can be in charge, you know, I can get some advice, I can get some support, but actually, as a parent or just as an individual, I can be in charge of what happens. And that's much more of an adult state, you know, and sometimes I really don't want it, you know. Definitely want somebody else to just make me all the nice food and feed it to me.
Just
and
give me a pill, and let me go and hide away and not do anything. But actually, I'd feel like that. I do feel like that sometimes. I do, and I'm like, I cannot be bothered. I just can't be bothered to cook ever again. Just give me a break. But that's one of the reasons why I called it timeless cookery, because although it is referring to ancestral wisdom that we have used since time, it also refers to being timeless, as in I haven't got much time and I can't be bothered to cook, because, you know, so many people just don't. They say, I can't cook, I haven't got time. But I am suggesting that it doesn't have to take that long, and that you can just chop things up and chuck them in and see what happens.
And also this whole leftovers business, this is revelatory. Like, we don't waste anything now we're eating this way. You know, make a big pan of something. I mean, it happened to me today. I was really hungry, been working this morning, came home, and yesterday's leftovers are just sitting there on the stove, and all I have to do is warm them up and eat them.
Great.
And it's so easy. And I realize that there's a kind of, you know, there's that whole culture of ready meals and pre-prepared food, and it's a lie. It's a lie that it's quicker. And it's, you know, it's toxic. So, but it's kind of part of that whole, well, I mean, you know, it's the whole culture, isn't it, of capitalism,
including
and all of this.
Including this idea of germ theory. I was talking about this the other day. You know, some people might say you can't leave the leftovers out, especially if it's got meat in it. You can't leave it out on the side, because, you know, it will have grown germs and it'll be poisonous for you the next day or whatever. You know, if it's got a lid on it, if it was heated up to very, very hot the day before, you know, and then it's got a lid on it, why shouldn't we leave it 24 hours? I mean, we don't live in a really, really, really hot country. I can understand things do go off, but frankly, I mean, I leave my stock pot on the top for weeks sometimes. I boil it up every day. As long as you heat something up, you know, it's so easy, isn't it? So yeah, germ theory. Germ Germ theory is a theory, for heaven's sake. The whole idea that something comes flying through the air and lands on you and then proliferates and then makes you ill
Mm.
is actually a theory. And Béchamp and Louis Pasteur, who were contemporaries, had differing views. Louis Pasteur was of the I was going to say of the avis, because I'm in France at the moment. He was of the mind. He was had the mindset of this, that a germ lands on you, and so that's why we have to pasteurize everything to kill all the germs. But Louis Béchamp, the other, not Louis, but Béchamp said it's the terrain that makes all the difference. So the terrain we're talking about here would be the microbiome. So the insides of your guts, full of all that amazing ecosystem, beautiful, just unique to you, trillions of different interactions going on between hundreds of thousands of different species of bacteria, and you know, who knows what's living in there. But if the terrain is healthy, it doesn't matter what lands on you. In fact, the more things that land on you, then the more healthy your terrain is going to be, because your body's going to find that amazing balance, you know. So yeah, the different mindset.
It's very interesting. Just when you're talking, I'm just thinking about something's coming to me about feelings, you know, and the kind of fear we have around feelings, and how as children we just feel, you know, we feel sad, we feel afraid, we feel angry, we feel joyous, and it's all should be okay. But often in a traumatized system, it's not okay, because actually the free feelings of a child are not okay for the parents. And I know this for myself, you know, as a mother, it's like, oh, your sadness is too much, your upset is too much, your confusion is too much for me to manage. So, and it just made me think about how actually what you said about the terrain, you know, if the family environment is healthy enough and open enough, all the feelings are okay. There's nothing
Brilliant.
fundamentally wrong with feelings.
Brilliant.
And it just, I don't know, it's just another parallel, but we become afraid of them, and we, if you like, squirt them with the Dettol or whatever. No, mustn't feel, mustn't
Yeah,
feel.
right. No, don't cry, don't cry. Yeah.
That's right. This whole
Yeah.
shushing children. I don't even know. You know, babies. What is that? Child is trying to say something,
Yeah.
communicate something. And similarly with body symptoms, you know, we like to shush our symptoms more than we like to listen to them.
So interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
And
They're
that
messages. They're messages. So emotions are
yeah,
messages, aren't they? An emotion
exactly.
comes up. Ideally, we acknowledge it and go, "Wow, that really riled me. That made me go grr when that she said that, or he said that, or whatever." But then hopefully we can completely just transmute that immediately and go, interesting, I was angry then. And then it's gone in that moment, you know, and you've acknowledged it, and then you've learned something, you know, that hopefully it's a mirror, they're holding a mirror up to you, and you can transmute whatever it is in you that's made that angry feeling.
That's right. And to differentiate as well between what belongs in the past, what's being triggered from past experiences, and what's actually relevant to now.
Right,
You know, so
interesting.
having a huge reaction to something that doesn't seem particularly threatening, let's say, but feels incredibly threatening, is an indication at some point there was a threat. And the part of me that was threatened feels threatened again now.
Yeah, and the more we ignore them every time they come up, the bigger it's going to get, isn't it? It's just
right. And the harder life is going to get, because the more I'm going to have to then figure out how can I live my life without feeling threatened, and that
that's
might end up with me not going out the house.
Right.
And
So it's like having a wart or something. You go, oh, I've got a wart, oh, whatever. It's just a little wart. It's like, hold on a minute. Or I've got athlete's foot, for instance. Or like right, athlete's foot is a fungus, right? So fungus come along right at that part of the cycle of life where it's time to break things down because they're dying. It's like it's on the compost heap. It's the mushroom phase. It's the, you know, when the big tree has died and the logs are being broken down by fungus. Yeah. So if you've got athlete's foot, it's like, whoa, that is a big message. That's your body like beginning to break. So fungus is coming to break down your body. That means your life force is really low. It's like you need to pay really, if we pay attention to these little symptoms that we think, oh yeah, that's nothing, you know, I just put a bit of cream on it. I won't get to the root of the problem. I just put a bit of antifungal cream on it or whatever. No, it's like, you know, we really need to pay attention to these little messages that our body.
I agree. And also the normalization of these sorts of things, you know, at a certain age, this happens. I don't know, osteoporosis or something. As if it's normal. as if we would, because I've had an ongoing issue with my thyroid, which I've, worked with in many different ways, none of which includes medicating myself for the rest of my life, which was one of the options.
Well done.
But it's interesting though, I've heard people say, oh yes, women in their 40s often have thyroid issues.
Yeah.
Now that might
not
be true.
your birthright. Yeah.
No, that might be true, but the issue with things like that is how normalized it becomes.
Yeah.
That we don't question then.
No.
Why?
I can remember walking into a pharmacy, and they had just redecorated or redone their display for the pain-killing pills. It was massive. It was a whole big wall, and there was a big red header, and in white writing it said, "How is your pain today?" And then there was a kind of like a dial with a scale of 1 to 10, and it's like, if your pain is at 2, have this, or if your pain is at 7, try the extra specially strong one. But what it was implying was that everyone who walks in there is in pain, which they probably are if they're going into a pharmacy, let's face it. But that's implying that the whole of it's like when at school the kids have a form to fill in for everything. There's always a form to fill in, for parental consent or whatever. The first question in it is, what medication are you on? Implying that most of the kids are on medication. Otherwise, why would you have it on everyone's form? It's like, this is normal to be on medication. It's normal to be in pain. It's not normal.
No, exactly. It's so interesting. And I think some of these things are just so fundamental. It's really, really good to hear them. So I might have the idea, I kind of know about this, but actually it's really, really good to just hear these things, that actually there's no reason why we shouldn't all be well. Absolutely. And if we're not well, it's really worth asking the question, why?
Absolutely.
What's going on with me? And what can I do?
What can I do about it? Or toxicity. Deficiency of building blocks and toxicity of toxins in the atmosphere. Translate that into IOPT, deficiency.
Well, I was just doing that in my head as you were saying it. I would say deficiency of contact, real contact, healthy contact with a mother primarily, but then also a father secondarily.
Being heard, being seen.
Who really, the mother and father really knowing who they are, being clear about who they are, so that they can provide a really healthy reference point for the child, and the child can be free to be whoever he or she is. So deficiency, and I often think about this, what's it called? Attention deficit disorder.
Yeah.
For me, it translates as a disorder that results from a deficit of attention.
Yes.
I've always understood it. And not just attention, like flapping around attention, but real contact. So that's how I would understand that. Deficiency, and then toxicity is toxicity of relationships. So that can impart, a lot of this is in utero, I would say. And of course it's to do with if a mother smokes, if a mother drinks, if she's not eating the right foods, if she's frightened, if she's stressed, if she's being traumatized during the pregnancy. These are all toxic things. But much more toxic even than that, I would say, is, for example, when a mother is thinking about aborting her baby.
Wow.
How do I, as the baby, I can't metabolize that. I can't say, no, I have a right to life, and I can't remove myself and go grow somewhere else. I'm in that. And that's a trauma in itself. Whether the abortion is attempted or decided against or whatever, that's the biggest no there is.
Yeah.
Is a no to my existence.
Yeah.
So I would say, and I would say these things have an impact. These emotional, physiological experiences very, very early have an impact on our body. How can they not? On our cells.
On a cellular level. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you talk about, I think you were talking earlier about cells being inhabited by the wrong sorts of things, like say by the wrong sorts of fats.
Yes.
It's like that. It's like if I've had a very toxic experience of contact, that's what I know. And actually, if safe, healthy contact comes along, I might not want it because I don't recognize it, which is the same as me looking at the milk kefir and going, don't bring that near me.
It does sometimes smell a bit like sick.
Sometimes it looks a bit like sick.
I've really
but
got
yeah,
into it though lately. I just chug it. I just eat.
sure.
I have so much. I'm just like, look, cafe, yummy. I just
Well,
absolutely love.
I know it's coming. This is the thing. I know it's all coming.
I tell you what, kefir is the granddaddy of all ferments. When you start to get kefir down you, that's when things really start to change.
But
It's
then you see, there's
remarkable.
a part of me. I hear you saying that. I think, oh shit, that's when I'm really gonna feel my trauma. Oh god.
When you're really
So
going to feel what?
when I'm really gonna feel my trauma, because when
Oh,
it's
I
really,
see.
really doing me good,
Yeah, but then
I'm
you will
really, really
overcome.
gonna
Yeah, then
feel.
you will have overcome all of it. Then, by the time you get to
Right.
kefir, you'll be a whole person. You're a whole person now.
That'll be the indicator that I've arrived. But yeah, I think, I think these things are so interwoven for me. If we're not fed right, if we're not,
And
um,
also when you say the trauma, anyone who experiences fear at any time will immediately have a decrease in the variety, the biodiversity of their biome. It's
exactly.
a fact. The minute you get that little bit of angst, your blood goes, you get a little, tiny bit adrenalized, your blood flies to your extremities so you can run away, and leaves your digestive system to fend for itself. And of course, you can't digest your food properly.
That's right. And then, of course, trauma, I think, has a deeper impact. So that what you just described is fight or flight. So when all my energy, my heart pumps, my adrenaline goes, and all my energy goes to my limbs. If I'm helpless in that situation, if it doesn't abate, if the situation doesn't go away, and I can't say no, and I can't get away, that's when it's a trauma, as opposed to a high stress situation, and that has a whole other impact on the body, because I have to split. I
Yeah.
can't be with it. Because if my heart keeps on and on and on at that rate, I'll die.
Man, we need to be talking a little bit about how we resolve these things, because it's quite, we've been looking at all the things that can harm us, that I'm feeling quite like, oh my God, it's really scary, thinking about trauma, even like, but you have great, I have had a great deal of, what do you call it? I've been having success with so many people, eating this way and getting to a space where they go, oh, I feel so good. I don't know why I didn't do this before. How is your prognosis? How does things work with you when you've been working with people? Are you having success?
Yeah, I mean, people come to this work because they want something for themselves. They know something's not right and they want something for themselves. And then, in a way, I see my role as just to accompany them. And the process is a kind of process of self-exploration. So it's not that I'm in charge. It's
Mm.
very much that the person who's doing the work is in charge, and I'm by their side, with the knowledge that I have about trauma, and they're constantly also doing my work so that I'm, properly present and available. And it changes people's lives, no doubt. I mean, I have had experience myself of my children showing extreme symptoms, and when I have worked on issues from my early childhood, the symptoms have gone away in the
So
children.
interesting.
And so then parents do sometimes come to me, and it's my particular area of interest is working with parents. And they'll come to me, with a whole list of symptoms that their child is showing. And the more that the mother or the father focuses on themselves, the more the children's symptoms quieten down. The child then doesn't get pathologized. This is the great thing. The child then doesn't get medicated or labeled or focused on, actually.
Yeah, because
Uh,
that's the thing. When the parents come and say, "My child, I've got a poorly child," we don't
mm,
want to be going, "I'm cooking this food especially for you because you're not well." You need to be just going, "I'm enjoying the food. Do you want some food, babe?" Yeah,
Absolutely, because children are part of a system, and they are not free to say,
yeah.
this is not okay for me, I want you to be different. I mean, I have to say my children do say that now. Absolutely. Because the space is there for them
Yeah,
to say it.
and you're cool. You're like, "I
Mommy,
don't
you're
mind if
not
you
being
say it."
okay
Yeah,
right
Mum, I don't like it when you're like that. Oh,
now.
okay.
But in a way, it's become safe for them to say that.
Yeah,
If I didn't know what I know and hadn't been lucky enough to come across this work and really take to it, we would all be living in a very different way, where everything that was going on for them would be inside, rather than able to be expressed. So I'm
brilliant,
lucky in that.
brilliant. So I'm helping people express themselves physically well, and you're helping people express themselves well. It comes out physically, but you're starting with trauma. So
Yeah.
it's called
Identity-oriented psychotrauma therapy, and it's the work of a man called Franz Rupert, who is based in Munich. It's his theory of trauma, and then a method that goes with to address it. But I do think, that we do need to be feeding ourselves well. I don't like saying right, but we need to be feeding ourselves well and to be nourishing ourselves on all levels.
Yeah.
So I really recognize that for me, however much I know or feel I know about trauma, however much I've explored myself, if I've got this like dark corner of, I'm really, really hungry, I'm just going to eat this piece of chocolate, there's going to come a point where that's not sustainable anymore.
Because as you were saying, you need to be tender with yourself, and food should be it's lovely if you can find the way for it to be, it's loving, it's sumptuous, it's sensitive, it's succulent, it's all of those, it's lovely, it should be a lovely thing that's enjoyable. You can take it or you can leave it, or there's no habits around it, you're not addicted to anything. It's just a wonderful thing that you give thanks for, and that you make with love to give. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, and connects us to our culture and to our roots and to the soil and to all of those really, really important things. Lucy, it's been such a joy to speak with you today, and thank you so much for sharing your story about your daughter and her little milk teeth that were black, and that you kept in until they fell out on their own, and you nourished her and she grew a whole big set of pearly whites. Brilliant. Congratulations. So proud of you. And thanks for speaking with me. It's been lovely.
Yeah, it's been really lovely. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you, Emma.
Great. Okay.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye now. Bye.
Bye.